What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about breakout players. This is always one of my favorite videos to do. Always excited to see some of these young players that could progress. We want to find the next Kirill Marchenko, the next Lane Hudson. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get into it, guys. We have a lot of players to talk about, a lot of interesting players that I think could put up maybe 35 to 40 points, and also some players that could potentially be a point per game. Now, real quick, boys, if you want to support the channel, which enables me to do these type of videos, make sure you download Drafters Fantasy Sports and sign up using code FIREDUP. Drafters is one of the only best ball platforms available in Ontario. Not many people know about it, but you can do best ball drafts on the NHL, NFL, and more. You can also do pick'ems like this one. The NFL starting soon. The NHL ones are going to be up as well. This code gives you 100% match deposit up to $100 in bonus funds. So 20 gets you 40, 40 gets you 80, 100 gets you 200. And you can use these bonus funds to compete in the NHL Best Ball Championship that's going to be released soon. The championship I came in fourth last year and won $2,000 from. And we're going to be doing these drafts on live stream very soon. It's available in all of Canada and most US states. And also, guys, we are partnered up with Underdog Fantasy Sports, another daily fantasy sports platform. And make sure you guys sign up using promo code FIREDUP. With this promo code, if you play $5, you get $50 in bonus funds. You also get a 50% match deposit up to $1,000 in bonus funds. And you're going to get a free draft cheat sheet that's coming out very soon. You guys can use these bonus funds to click higher on Matt Boldy's points. What are we doing here? That is free money. And also compete in the biggest fantasy hockey contest in the world. The Best Puck Classic is live right now. I'm going to be doing live streams, drafting teams very soon, and the total prizes for this contest is $200,000. Underdog is not available in Ontario, but it's available in the rest of Canada, most US states as well, so make sure you guys download the app and sign up with code FIREDUP. The first breakout player I want to talk about is Ville Koivunen of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Koivunen's 22 years old. He was drafted in the second round in 2021, and last year we saw a very impressive season in the AHL. He put up 56 points in 63 games, and that led his AHL team. So really impressive stuff from him. Now, we saw Koivunen get called up last year at the end of the season. He put up 7 points in 8 games, all assists though, no goals. He's more of a playmaker. He was getting like 18 minutes a game. He was on the top power play unit as well. With that being said, in terms of a point prediction, I would say it would be somewhere in the range between 35 and 50 points. Is there a chance for more? Yes, but we have to be realistic here, guys. Koivunen is a rookie. He's on the Pittsburgh Penguins, and deployment is not guaranteed. Overall, my opinion on Koivunen is that he is a really smart player, really high hockey IQ, really good skater, good offensive instincts. He's going to make the team, in my opinion, and maybe there's a shot he's top 6 all season. That would be the best case scenario for him. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do for this upcoming season. The next breakout candidate is a player that Canucks fans should be very excited about, and that player is Jonathan Lekerimäki. This guy's 21 years old. He was drafted 15th overall in 2022. We saw in the Swedish Hockey League, he lit up that one season. He put up 31 points in 46 games, including 19 goals. This is against grown men. In 24-25 in the AHL, he had 28 points in 36 games, including 19 goals. So 19 goals in 36 games. That was 8th in AHL goals per game. And we also saw in the World Juniors in 2024, he won the MVP. He had 7 goals and 3 assists in 7 games. The big question is he going to make the team? I can't tell you that he is, but I had to include him on this list because if he does, there is an opportunity to potentially be in the top 6 and on power play 1 as well. With Lekerimäki, him as a player, he can drive the play really well. He has a really good shot, quick release. He's really composed out there. So in general, I think he has a lot of potential. I think he's a future 30 goal scorer in the NHL. The big question is if he makes the team. That's pretty much it. I definitely see a scenario where he's playing in the AHL for an entire year, but the Canucks could use some help, and maybe if he has a strong camp, he can make the team and put up, 30 to 50 points for this upcoming year. Next up, we have Arseny Griciuk of the New Jersey Devils. This guy's a 24-year-old coming from the KHL, and last year he had a pretty darn good KHL season, 44 points in 49 games. But that being said, based on my research on this guy, he did do a lot of right things in the KHL last year. He's a plus 22 as well. He had 5 points in 6 playoff games. And with this Devils team, who really needs some more depth, I think the goal would be to get him on that top line with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, because I don't think Palat is the answer. I don't think Palat should be on the top line with those guys. If that happens, I definitely think 35 to 50 points is possible, and I'm excited to see what he can do on this Devils team and what this Devils team could do with a little more depth than him and guys like Connor Brown. Next up, we have Maverick Bourque of the Dallas Stars. We can obviously look to his junior numbers being very solid, but in the AHL, as a rookie, 47 points in 70 games. That's great. And then in his second year in the AHL, he had 77 points in 71 games. The good thing for him for this upcoming season is that the Stars lost a lot of depth. They lose Marchman, Granlund, Stankoven. They add Mikko Rantanen, but I mean, looking at this team, it's not as deep as last year. This means that Bourque has the potential to be in the top 6. Now, in terms of what it's looking like right now with Sagan and Duchesne, Bourque is probably going to be on the 3rd line. However, you never know what happens. You could definitely see him get a crack in the top 6 at some point, and even if he's only on the 3rd line, that's still an improvement from last year, guys, because Bourque was pretty much playing 4th line minutes. He was getting like 12 minutes a game, so at least now he's going to be on the 3rd line, and I think with an ice time bump, we could see 35 to 50 points. Another guy in this point range, 35 to 50 points, is Danila Yurov of the Minnesota Wild. Yurov was drafted 24th overall in 2022. He's 21 years old. The reason why he's been so talked about in the last 2 years or so is the 23-24 season in the KHL. He had 49 points in 62 games. This actually set the record for most points by a KHL player aged 20 or younger. This was tied by Ivan Demidov last year in the KHL as a 19-year-old. But this is very impressive production playing against grown men in the KHL. Now, he did follow this up last year with not the same level of season. He had 25 points in 46 games. Still very good for his age. Not too sure what happened there, but we do know that he did have 2 surgeries in the last 13 months, I believe. So that definitely impacted last season, and we'll have to see if that impacts this season. But in general, this guy has a lot of potential. We'll see what he does. Maybe he breaks out and ends up on power play 1 over a guy like Zuccarello, but I just don't see that happening, especially with Marco Rossi there as well. Yurov moved to center about 2 seasons ago, and I think they're going to start him as a center. And with Eriksson Ek and then Rossi, he's sort of stuck behind those guys on the 3rd line. So that's why I have him in this 35 to 50 point range. We'll have to see what happens, but I think this guy's going to be a stud for many years to come. Yeah, excited to see what he can do, and the Wild have some fun players to watch for this upcoming year. Next up, let's talk about Isaac Howard. This is a player that a lot of people are excited about for this upcoming season. I'm excited about it, and let's talk about what the chances are that he breaks out. Just to give you some background here, Howard, he's 21 years old. He won the Hobey Baker Award last season, which is the best college player. He had 26 goals and put up 52 points in 37 games. So yeah, he just truly broke out, and we saw him get traded to the Oilers from Tampa Bay this offseason. We don't really have all the details on why he requested a trade, but yes, he wanted out of Tampa. I think everyone assumes that it was about opportunity. The Oilers, they need some top 6 talent, and Isaac Howard can slot right into that role. Now, in terms of Howard as a player, some people compare him to a Clayton Keller type player, which is always good to hear because Keller is a beast. He is crafty. He is good with the puck. He's speedy. I think he fits really well with a McDavid or a Draisaitl, so I think there's a good shot they put him on that line to start the season. Now, could he put up more than 50 points? Maybe. I'm not saying he couldn't, but without power play one time, his ceiling's going to be capped. That's just how it is. We'll see what happens, but I think maybe like 25 goals, 25 assists would be a really nice season for Howard, and Oilers fans got to be pretty excited getting a Hobey Baker Award winner, and I'm sure he's excited too, getting the opportunity to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. So super excited to see what he can do, and hopefully he can break out. Next up, we have another Oilers player, Matthew Savoy. He is a little bit undersized at 5'9", but in terms of him as a player, very crafty, high tempo, speedy player. I think he's going to work really well in this Oilers team, probably playing on line with Draisaitl. And if we look at his AHL season, he had 54 points in 66 games. So solid production in the AHL, and I think there's a chance he puts up 35 to 50 points for this upcoming year. Moving on to the next point range, 40 to 60 points. The first player we're going to be talking about is Yegor Chinakhov of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Chinakhov is 24 years old. He got drafted 21st overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and this guy has a lot of upside. Chinakhov is a shoot-first player. He has a super quick release that can fool goalies easily. He's so good at finding scoring lanes. I think if you put him in the right situation, he could score 30-plus goals in the NHL. We've seen him play 4 seasons in the NHL, but they've been limited. I think he's only played 175 games because he keeps getting injured. That has been the biggest roadblock to Chinakhov's success in the NHL. I mean, we saw last year at the start of the season, he had 14 points in his first 21 games. He was actually on power play 1 ahead of Kirill Marchenko to start the year, which I didn't understand as a Marchenko guy, but I mean, that goes to show the talent that Chinakhov has. And he was also in the top 6, so he was getting the opportunity, he was producing, but then he got injured. Unfortunately for Chinakhov, he came back and he couldn't find a consistent spot in the lineup. He was basically getting like 12 minutes a night. Ultimately, this has led Chinakhov to request a trade. He requested a trade in the offseason, confirmed by his agent. And the thing that was cited was communication issues with head coach Dean Evison. Now, just because a player asks for a trade doesn't mean they're going to get traded. It is something to keep an eye out for, though, because there is a chance he gets traded to a team where he could be a top line power play one guy. And then if that were to happen, he could definitely surpass 60 points. With that being said, though, the reason I have him in this 40 to 60 point range on Columbus is because the opportunity for ice time is there, even strength in the top 6, which is great, but he doesn't really have a path to get him power play 1. But regardless, guys, I think he does have a lot of talent. He's right within that age range, 24, 25, where we start to see guys break out. And if he can just stay healthy for a full season, I think he could have a pretty good year. The next player I want to talk about here is Logan Stankoven of the Carolina Hurricanes. Stankoven is a player like Maverick Bourque who got drafted later than he should have, probably because of his stature. He is 5'8". He is a smaller guy, but we saw really good numbers in the WHL. Drafted by Dallas, 14 points in 24 games in his first season, had 8 points in 19 games in the playoffs as well. Very impressive as a rookie. And then the AHL, he had 57 points in 47 games. Last year we saw with Dallas, he put up 29 points in 59 games. That's an 82 game pace of 49 points. And he obviously got traded to Carolina in the Mikko Rantanen trade. Yeah, definitely a strong young player. A guy has the potential to break out, but the ultimate issue that I have with him is that his role in Carolina is limited. As you guys can tell, in Carolina, he averaged pretty much the exact same ice time that he did on Dallas, and he was basically playing on the third line with Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook. So being on the third line is not the best recipe for success in terms of a breakout, and also he's not on power play 1 either. With that being said, yes, there's a chance he could be in the top 6. They've talked about wanting to try him at center. They also want to try Jarvis out at center. So yes, he could be in the top 6, but I just don't see him being on power play 1. You have Svechnikov there, you have Blake there. So I think you're probably going to see a similar amount of ice time, like 15 minutes per game, maybe on the third line. So yeah, I sort of see him in this 40 to 60 point range. He's probably not going to have an insane breakout. Next up, we have Maxime Shabanov. Some of you may have not heard of this player. He is 24 years old, coming from the KHL, signed a 1-year deal with the Islanders this offseason. And we saw last year in the KHL, he had 67 points in 65 games. In terms of the KHL, the game doesn't always translate to the NHL. There's less physicality. The ice is bigger. So sometimes we see guys like Nikita Gusev. It just didn't work out. And that could be a similar situation with Shabanov. With that being said, though, he could also be an Artemi Panarin type player. I'm not ruling that out. And also a big thing that needs to be mentioned is his size. Shabanov is 5'8" and 156 pounds. And that's why people question if his game's going to translate from the KHL to the NHL. Based on the film that I watched, he is very shifty, very skilled, very fun to watch. So the offense is there. Not too sure about the defense, so that might be an issue in terms of deployment. But for the Isles, this was just an high upside, low risk signing. With all that being said, he has the offensive capabilities. I think the deployment's going to be solid as well in terms of even strength. I think he will be in the top 6. And then in terms of power play deployment, that's where I am a little bit concerned. Shabanov is going to have to beat out Drouin for this top spot. So yeah, there is that roadblock, but in general, I think 40 to 60 points is a possibility. And I'm just excited to see him play and hopefully break out this year. The next breakout candidate is Luke Evangelista of the Nashville Predators. He is 23 years old. He's a winger, and he was drafted 42nd overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft. In terms of his production, he had a really good last OHL season. He had 111 points in 62 games, including 55 goals. And in the AHL as a rookie, he had 41 points in 49 games. So close to being a point per game player. And in terms of the 3 seasons that we've seen in the NHL, the first year he only played 24 games, but he put up 15 points. The season after that, he put up 39 points in 80 games. And then last season, he put up 32 points in 68 games, which was a 38 point pace. The big thing that stands out about these numbers is the lack of ice time that he's getting. He is producing despite limited minutes, and if you saw his minutes go up to like 16 or 17 minutes per game, I could absolutely see him put up 50 to 60 points. Now, Evangelista is not the most explosive player, but he has really good puck possession skills, elite hockey IQ, really good vision. He's also a solid two-way player as well. So he has a lot of things going for him, and right now he is an unsigned RFA. He is still a restricted free agent. The sides are apparently not very close, so we'll have to see what happens there. I think there's certainly an an opportunity for him to be in the top 6 consistently, getting around 15 to 16 minutes per night. And we saw last year, at the end of last season, he was producing, guys. He had 16 points in his last 21 games. You know, he was in the top 6, getting more minutes, closer to that 15, 16 minute mark. So I think he's going to get more ice time, and I think he's going to capitalize on it. I think the big thing that he needs to work on is finishing, though, because if you look at his shooting percentage, it's closer to the bottom of the NHL. I think that's the big knock on Evangelista, but if he can figure that out, get a little more efficient, I think he's going to have a pretty good year. The next breakout candidate is Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues, drafted 23rd overall in the 2022 NHL entry draft. He's 21 years old, had a couple of really good seasons with the University of Minnesota. Snuggerud has a really good heavy shot. He has good size. He's an all-around player, and he definitely has good experience playing in high-pressure situations like we saw in the playoffs last year. I mean, he put up 4 points in 7 games with the Blues against the Jets, and he was getting top-line minutes with Buchnevich and Thomas, pretty much getting 17-plus minutes a night. That's the big thing for me, guys, in terms of his breakout. It does come down to deployment in a lot of situations, and basically making an immediate impact like that, being trusted by the coach to not only play on the first line with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich, but also on power play 1 as well. It says a lot about the trust that the coach has in him, Jim Montgomery, and that's why I expect him to have a pretty solid year, because I think he's going to get the ice time, and if he's playing with a guy like Robert Thomas, I'm expecting 40 to 60 points. Next up, we have Zach Benson of the Buffalo Sabres, drafted 13th overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft. He definitely slipped, mainly because of his size. Like, he shouldn't have gone this late. He is 5'9", smaller frame, but he has a lot of skill, guys. I think he has a lot of potential, and we saw that right out of the bat in his rookie season. Not a lot of people expected him to make the team, but he had a really strong showing in camp. He made the team, put up 30 points in 71 games in his rookie season, and then he followed it up last year, sophomore year, putting up 28 points in 75 games. He had pretty much the same production, same ice time, but I do think that he can take a step forward for this upcoming season, so let's talk about it. I think for me as a player, Benson is just so much fun to watch. He is a relentless, high-tempo, high-energy guy. He has elite vision, elite hockey IQ. He's such a good playmaker as well, guys. This year, with Peterka gone, he has the opportunity to be in the top 6, maybe even on the first line with Tage Thompson and Yuri Kulik, if that's the line they run. So if he is playing top line minutes, maybe even power play 1 as well, guys, because there is spots available, I could definitely see him put up 40 to 60 points. We'll see what happens with his deployment, but I think he has so much potential. He plays way bigger than his 5'9" frame. He is going to be a player that coaches fall in love with, and I think that he might surprise some people for this upcoming year. Another Sabres player that I think has a pretty good shot at breaking out is Yuri Kulik. Kulik is 21 years old. He was drafted 28th overall in the 2022 NHL entry draft, and this season, with the Sabres being pretty thin down the middle, he has a shot to play on the top line and maybe even power play 1. In terms of Kulik as a player, he doesn't jump out to me as an offensive beast, but he is a really good two-way guy. Some people compare him to like a Ryan O'Reilly or a David Krejci. I know those are some pretty nice comparisons, but I think he has that type of game in his arsenal. With that being said, his production has been very good. 2 really good years in the AHL, and then last year with the Sabres, he had 15 goals and a total of 24 points in 62 games. Not the best production, but not terrible. He averaged 14 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time per game, and he didn't really get on the top line until the end of last year. So I think what we're going to see is a jump in ice time, maybe like 16, 17 minutes. And with a jump in ice time, we're going to see a jump in production. We'll have to see what happens in camp, how they were on the lines, but he's definitely a player I could see putting up that 40 to 60 point range for this year. Next up, we have Shane Wright of the Seattle Kraken. You guys know who he is. 21 years old, drafted 4th overall in the 2022 NHL entry draft. Famously stared down the other GMs. Very upset with falling to 4th overall. Expected to be the #1 pick, but unfortunately in the 21-22 season in the OHL, he didn't have the best draft year. Regardless of all that stuff, he's on the Kraken. He had a good AHL season in 23-24. And then last year, we got to see a full season of Shane Wright. And in 79 games, he had 44 points, including 19 goals, which was very good, especially considering that he only averaged 14 minutes and 4 seconds of ice time per game. For me as a player, Wright is really solid at everything. He's just a well-rounded two-way center. He doesn't necessarily excel at any one particular thing though, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. I just don't think he has the most insane offensive offensive ceiling. So that's just my opinion on Wright as a player. I think he's going to be a solid first line, second line center for many years to come. But in terms of this upcoming season, we got to talk about the breakout case. The breakout case is if he gets top line minutes and power play one time. Obviously, like I said, putting up that type of production with limited minutes, it's a good indication of what somebody can do when they have an increased role. So that would be the case. Unfortunately, the problem is that he is on the Seattle Kraken. We know with the Kraken, I mean, just looking at their team here, they are so deep. And I don't mean deep as like what we saw with the Dallas Stars last year, but they are like perfectly mid. Okay, they have a bunch of like second line, third line guys. We also know that the Kraken love to distribute the ice time. They love to roll the lines, and it makes sense with the caliber of players that they have. Yes, they have a new head coach, guys, but just based on this lineup, I would expect them to do the same thing. And we also know the Kraken are one of the only teams that run a true 1A, 1B power play. That brings me to the conclusion that we're probably not going to see a big ice time bump for Shane Wright. He could be stuck in the third line. I mean, we'll see with Chandler Stevenson there. Maybe he's in the top 6. And also, guys, he was ultra efficient last year. He only took 91 shots in 79 games, which is not great, especially for you guys that are watching for fantasy hockey purposes. This put him at a 20.9% shooting percentage, and that's not sustainable, guys. I mean, maybe that's going to be the shooting percentage that he puts up throughout his career, but I just don't see it happening. He had 7 power play goals and a total of 13 power play points as well. Despite not getting a lot of power play time, his shooting percentage on the power play was 31.8%. So I just don't expect the same level of efficiency, and I don't expect an ice time bump, like I said. So I would say out of all these players that I'm talking about today, he's lower on the list in terms of my level of confidence of a true breakout for this upcoming year. The next breakout player in this range, who I'm definitely a fan of, is Frank Nazar of the Chicago Blackhawks. Nazar is a center. He is 21 years old. He was drafted 13th overall in 2022. And in terms of his production, we saw last year with the Blackhawks, 26 points in 53 games, averaging around 15 minutes and 52 seconds of ice time per game. This put him on a pace of 40 points in an 82-game season. And that is pretty darn good. I think that's a solid rookie year. And we also saw in the AHL, he played 21 games. He put up 24 points. So he was 5th in points per game in the AHL. Yes, it was a smaller sample size, but it's clear this guy is NHL ready, and I think this season he's going to have a pretty good opportunity. Based on this lineup, I think he's going to be centering the second line, maybe even the first line if they decide to move Bedard to the wing. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but that would be cool to see for Nazar. And I also think he's going to be power play 1 as well. If you guys watch my power play video, I projected him to be power play 1. We saw them put Nazar on that unit at the end of last season. They put him in the bumper. He looked pretty good on there, and I personally think he is too skilled to be left off this top unit. Overall, Nazar is a highlight reel type player. He is super skilled, super speedy. I think he can actually drive the play, and that's something that a lot of Blackhawks players can't do. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do, guys, and I think 40 to 60 points is reasonable in his sophomore season. All right, so moving on to the 50 to 70 point range, the first player I want to talk about is Cole Perfetti of the Winnipeg Jets. Perfetti is 23 years old. He was drafted 10th overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft, and in terms of him as a player, he's not a guy that has the most raw elite size or skill, but he is a guy that's a pretty dynamic playmaker. He has good vision, he has good hockey IQ, and he's become a pretty pivotal part of this Jets forward group. In terms of his production in the NHL, it's been pretty good despite limited minutes. He has a consistent role in this top 6, and also with Ehlers gone, they need somebody on that top power play unit, and I think there's a good shot it's Cole Perfetti. The only negative about Perfetti this year is that, yes, he probably has worse even strength line mates. He played on a line with Ehlers a lot last season, and this season, it might be Jonathan Toews and Gustav Nyquist. These are new guys, new players in the system. We don't know what their chemistry is going to be like. So yes, that is the one negative, but consistent role in the top 6, 23 years old, high draft capital, probably on power play 1. These are all good things, so I'm looking forward to what he can do this year. The next breakout candidate that I'm a big fan of is Jack Quinn of the Buffalo Sabres. Quinn is 23 years old. He was drafted 8th overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft. He had 52 goals in 62 games in his draft year with the Ottawa 67s. And right off the bat, he was producing really well when he got drafted. We saw in the 2021-2022 season in the AHL with the Rochester Americans, Quinn put up 26 goals and a total of 61 points in 45 games. This was 3rd in points per game in the AHL that year at the age of 20. So a lot of people were very excited about Quinn, and people viewed him as the next superstar in the NHL. The next season, we saw Quinn have a pretty solid rookie year, 37 points in 75 games, only averaging around 13 minutes of ice time per game. But then the next year, he tore his Achilles. Even though his production was okay when he returned that year, 19 points in 27 games, the last 2 years, he just hasn't looked like the same player. I feel like he's really lost a lot of that skating ability that he had, but this year is a big season for him to prove himself. Near the tail end of last season, we saw him put up 15 points in his last 16 games, so maybe a sign of things to come. He did look a little bit more comfortable out there, a little bit better, and in terms of his role in the Sabres this year, that's sort of where it's a little bit tricky. They've moved Tage to the wing, and that means he's sort of behind Tage and Alex Tuch when we're talking about even strength. We'll see what they do there, but I would love to see him get in the top 6. I also think he has a shot on power play 1 because his biggest strength is his lightning quick release. He is a pure sniper, guys, and I think if he's given opportunity on this top power play unit and in the top 6, he's going to show that he is still the player that was highly touted a couple of years ago. The next breakout candidate is Will Smith of the San Jose Sharks. He was drafted 4th overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft, and he had a pretty good rookie year last season, putting up 45 points in 74 games. He's a very creative offensive player, very dynamic, elite puck skills, good vision, and also he has a surprisingly good two-way game as well. In terms of the season, he started off pretty slow. There were some growing pains, but like I said, he put up 45 points in 74 games, which put him on a pace for 49 points, and that was with only averaging 15 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time per game. It also needs to be mentioned that Smith wasn't power play 1 for the majority of the year. It was Alex Wennberg on this top unit over him, and a bunch of other guys like Wallman and Granlund who got moved. But we saw at the end of last year, he got put on the top unit. He was getting consistent top 6 minutes, and we saw him put up 31 points in his last 37 games. I think we're going to see him power play 1 for the entire year, so that could definitely bump up his production. Yeah, like I said, I think you're going to see good minutes. He also has a really sneaky good shot. A lot of people don't know this about him. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think 50 to 70 points is a realistic projection. 70 points might be a little bit too much, but I do expect a little bump in his production. Next up, we have Leo Carlsson of the Anaheim Ducks, drafted 2nd overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft. This guy has so much potential. I get the comparisons to Alexander Barkov. He is 6'3", 20 years old, and last season he had a really good year, putting up 45 points in 76 games. Carlsson has elite playmaking skills. He skates really well for his size, really good hands, and obviously this guy is going to be a stud for many years to come. But let's talk about what he could do for next year. Last year, like I said, he had 45 points in 76 games, but he really came on at the end of last year. He put up 25 points in his final 28 games. So he was breaking out, and we could see that momentum going into this season. The big thing for me is deployment. He is their franchise center. He's going to be on the first line. He's going to get a good amount of power play time as well, even though I'm not too sure what those units are going to look like. We have Joel Quenneville coming in, a coach with so much experience. I think he could be big for this team, comparable to what, Dean Evison did for the Columbus Blue Jackets last year. And, Greg Cronin just wasn't great. So despite all of the stuff that was going on last year, he still put up good production. Like, despite the Ducks having the worst power play in the NHL at like 11%, he still put up 45 points. If we see maybe him put up like 20 power play points on a better team with added guys like Chris Kreider, Cutter Gauthier breaking out, Mason McTavish, then I think that him putting up 60 to 70 points is absolutely a possibility. I think we should be excited for what's to come and for many years to come as well if you're a Ducks fan. Next up, we have Juraj Slafkovsky of the Montreal Canadiens. As you guys know, drafted 1st overall in the 2022 NHL entry draft. He's 21 years old. He's a big power forward. He does have some potential, guys, and I think there's a chance he could break out. So let's talk about it. The first thing I'll say is that a lot of people write Slafkovsky off. The fact that he's not this offensive beast. He is a power forward. He's not like the most skilled offensive player, but he is 21 years old. We need to always temper expectations with these young players. I know this has been said a million times, but we can look at players like Jack Hughes and Nathan McKinnon and see that it took a couple of years for them to actually become stars in the NHL. With that being said, he's played pretty good in the last 2 years. 50 points in 82 games in 23-24. 51 points in 79 games last year, and opportunity has not been an issue. He has been a staple on that first line with Suzuki and Caulfield, and he's also been a staple on that first power play unit. The big issue that I've had with Slafkovsky is just consistency. He has a slow start, it feels like every season, and then near the end of the year, he starts popping off, and we saw that last year as well. He had 18 points in his last 22 games, including 8 goals. Overall, Slafkovsky has a unique blend of skill and physicality. He's still such a young player. The Canadians added Dobson, you have Lane Hudson, you have a lot of young players, a fully healthy Patrick Laine. So there's a lot of things going for this team. And I think if Slafkovsky can just find more consistency this year, 60 to 70 points is absolutely possible. The next breakout player, a guy that I'm a big fan of, is Cutter Gauthier of the Anaheim Ducks. Gauthier was drafted 5th overall in 2022 by the Flyers. He's 6'2". He's 21 years old. His college season in 23-24 was incredible. 38 goals and a total of 65 points in only 41 games. He was a Hobey Baker finalist, and we saw in his first season in the NHL, he had 20 goals and a total of 44 points in 82 games. This is very good production, guys, on not a good team with the worst power play in the NHL and only averaging 14 minutes of ice time per game. Only 6 of his 44 points was on the man advantage last year. So if we see him establish himself on this top unit for this upcoming season, and we see this power play improve because they can only go up from last in the NHL, then we could potentially see a big breakout. In terms of Gauthier as a player, he is one of the fastest players in the NHL. He has an extremely powerful shot as well. It's in the top percentile in the entire league. He shoots like a madman as well. This is really good for fantasy purposes. 190 shots last year, guys, with only 14 minutes of ice time per game. He was 25th in shots per 60 last season. So yeah, this is a guy that is going to be a beast in fantasy hockey for many years to come. And I think next year, 50 to 70 points is definitely possible. We did see at the end of last year, him and Carlson were really clicking. He had 19 points in his last 24 games. So that could be a little taste of what is to come. You also have Joel Quenneville getting hired, replacing Greg Cronin. That's an upgrade. You have Chris Kreider coming in, Mikel Granlund. So there's a lot of good things going for this team. For me, the only thing that he needs is more ice time. That would be the only thing preventing the breakout this year. I would hope to see a third line of Vetrano, Strome, and Killorn and have those guys get less ice time, but there's a chance they roll 3 lines and distribute the ice time here. And you also have to worry about the power play units as well, because there's a lot of guys that are good in the power play, and some guys are going to get left off this first unit. With all that being said, I think Gauthier is a future 40 goal scorer in the NHL. I really like that he's attached to Leo Carlson, a player that the coaching staff definitely wants to give ice time to. So he has that sort of floor baked in terms of deployment. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think there's a chance he could put up 30 goals and maybe even 60 to 70 points next year, but the deployment needs to be there. The next breakout player that we got to talk about is Ivan Demidov of the Montreal Canadiens. This guy's 19 years old. He was drafted 5th overall in the 2024 NHL entry draft, and in his first KHL season, he put up 49 points in 65 games, setting a record for the most points by a player aged 19 or younger in KHL history. Not only did he do this, but he did this with only averaging 13 minutes and 45 seconds of ice time per game. Chicago, what are you doing? Why didn't you draft this guy to play with Bedard? I mean, in terms of Demidov as a player, he is an exceptional offensive talent, incredible skater, incredible puck handling. He can play make, he can score, he can elevate everyone on the ice with him. Is his defense great? No. I mean, we definitely saw some growing pains last year in the limited games that we saw him play in. But yes, this guy is going to be elite for many years to come. So let's talk about what type of points he could put up for this upcoming year. I think the first thing we need to look at here is 19-year-old rookie seasons in the NHL. Obviously, a lot of these guys in the 60s. It's not applicable to the modern NHL, but we've seen guys like Crosby, McDavid, Stamkos have really good first seasons as a 19-year-old. Those are really the only exceptions though, because once you get past those guys, it's Patrick Kane, Patrick Laine, Austin Matthews. Those guys didn't get more than 70 points. And I mean, in terms of his deployment, that's what we need to talk about. I think they're going to keep this Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky line together, but you might see Demidov get a look there at some point, and that sort of leaves him with not the best line mates. It might be Laine on that left side, or maybe Bolduc. It's going to be Kirby Dach or Alex Newhook. So even strength, it's not the best. And also the big thing that we need to talk about is power play 1. I think Demidov is going to be elite on the power play for many years to come. And if he starts the year on the first unit, I wouldn't be surprised because he is just so skilled. But my issue is that Patrick Laine led the NHL in power play goals per game last year. I think he had like 15 in 52 games or something like that. And you don't want to take a player like that off the first unit. Yes, you could argue this power play is more dynamic with him on it. He looked more dynamic in the limited games that we saw him on this first unit last year, but I just struggle imagining them taking the best power play goal scorer in the NHL off the first unit to the second unit. That's why I'm projecting Laine to be on there over Demidov to start the year, but like I said, Demidov is so skilled, so I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that is sort of an issue. If he's not power play 1 and he's playing with not the best even strength line mates, I don't see him surpassing 70 points. This is why I think he's going a little bit too high in fantasy hockey drafts right now. But guys, I see the vision, but I think I feel pretty comfortable in the range of 50 to 70 points for this upcoming year. Capping off this point range, 50 to 70 points, let's talk about Adam Fantilli of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Fantilli was drafted 3rd overall in the 2023 NHL entry draft, and last season was fantastic. He had 31 goals and a total of 54 points in 82 games. It's worth mentioning here that only 2 goals here came from the man advantage, so he had 28th even strength goals last year, which was 14th best in the entire NHL. This is better than Braden Point, Cole Caulfield, Adrian Kempe, Jake Gensel, Nathan McKinnon, Jack Eichel, Sidney Crosby, Philip Forsberg, Sam Reinhart, Kevin Fiala, Mikko Rantanen, Sebastian Aho. The list goes on. For a 20-year-old, this is so impressive, guys, especially not necessarily having all-star level line mates. He played with JVR and Ken Johnson for a good portion of the season. He wasn't on the top line, only with the exception of that Monahan injury. And during that Monahan injury, he had 23 points in 28 games. He was playing really well. He actually had no power play points during the stretch, which it does kind of suck because that is pretty much my only issue with Fantilli when it comes to breaking out. It's the lack of power play one time. He can only put up so many even strength points. So that's why I don't have him in this next range, but I think 50 to 70 points is reasonable. However, if we do see him get on power play one for the entire season, I could definitely see him putting up 70 plus points. I also want to mention that in his last 44 games, he had 39 points, including 24 goals. He was 4th in even strength goals during that stretch in the NHL, and he was 11th in even strength points during that stretch as well. So yeah, he was breaking out, and maybe he can continue this going into next year. Next up, let's go into the next point range, 60 to 75 points, starting with the Alexis Lafreniere of the New York Rangers. Lafreniere hasn't necessarily lived up to being drafted 1st overall, but he's still only 23 years old. I still think he has a lot of potential, and he has shown flashes and stretches of really good hockey throughout his NHL career. This was highlighted in his 23-24 season. He had 28 goals and a total of 57 points in 82 games. He also had 8 goals and a total of 14 points in 16 playoff games. So that was a fantastic season. And in that season, he wasn't power play one. So the majority of those points came from even strength. That line of Panarin, Lafreniere, and Trocheck is one of the best lines in the NHL. And ultimately, the big thing that is going to determine whether he breaks out or not is if he ends up on power play one. Yes, he has consistency issues, but that's the biggest thing holding him back because, like I said, in 23-24, a lot of even strength production. He had 51 even strength points. This was better than Barkov, better than Nico Hischier, better than Clayton Keller, Jordan Kyrou, Matt Boldy, Seth Jarvis, Kevin Fiala. The list goes on, guys. He had a really good year that season, and if he was power play one that year, he would have likely eclipsed 70 points. With that being said, we do have Kreider gone, who is their premier net front power play specialist, and you have JT Miller in. So you could have a power play with Trocheck and JT Miller, but I think Lafreniere has the best shot to be on power play one this season, and I think he's going to get that opportunity. The reason I say this is because, one, JT Miller can be the face-off guy on power play one. Trocheck is not necessarily needed anymore. Also, the Rangers power play was terrible last year, so they might want to mix it up. And in general, I think he is a more offensively gifted player than Vincent Trocheck. So I think they're going to give him a look on this top unit. We will see what happens, but he's right within this range that we start to see players break out. He's 23 years old, and I think he might surprise some people, especially in fantasy hockey, guys, because he does like to shoot the puck, and he does put hits up as well, if your league counts that. The next breakout candidate I want to talk about is Mason McTavish of the Anaheim Ducks. He's a 22-year-old center, drafted 3rd overall in 2021. He is currently a restricted free agent, unsigned, so there is that contract situation going on. Trade rumors are swirling, but regardless of this, I do think there's a strong chance that he breaks out. McTavish so far in his NHL career has had pretty good production, 43 points in 80 games in his rookie season. He had 42 points in 64 games the next year, and last year he had 52 points in 76 games. So we've seen every year he's increased his goal total, he's increased his point total, and his ice time has gone up as well. You guys have seen as well that he hasn't averaged the most ice time either. He's never averaged more than 17 minutes a game, so that is part of the breakout case. If we see him put up like 18 or 19 minutes of ice time per game, then we're going to see a bump in production. Another thing to mention here, guys, is that the Ducks have been pretty bad his whole career, so we could see an improvement with guys like Chris Kreider, Mikko Granlund. You have Joel Quenneville coming in as head coach, replacing Greg Cronin. There's a lot of things going for this team, and that's going to help McTavish. One important detail to mention is the power play. Last season, they sort of ran a 1A, 1B split, which isn't great for fantasy hockey and just point totals in general. They had the worst power play in the NHL at 11%. So if we do see this power play improve, then this is going to help McTavish's point totals. In terms of McTavish as a player, I think he's a player that coaches love. I think Joel Quenneville is going to be a big fan and reward him with ice time. time. He's a two-way center. He's a hard forechecker, relentless, high-tempo player who goes in those dirty areas and does the right things. He's not the fastest skater, which I guess is one knock on him in terms of his offensive abilities, but he has a good shot, good heavy shot, and he drives the net like it's nobody's business. So yeah, I'm a fan of his game. I think in the right circumstances, if he's getting the right deployment on power play one as well, I definitely think 70 points is within reach. The last player in this range is none other than Quinton Byfield of the Los Angeles Kings. Byfield is 23 years old, a 6'5" center, drafted second overall in the 2020 NHL entry draft. And so far in his NHL career, he has shown flashes of brilliance. Byfield's one of those rare players, a combination of size and skill, and also speed. Like the fact that he's that fast, being like a 6'5" player is very impressive. He has excellent puck control, and just creativity wise, he is such a dynamic offensive player. If we're looking at his NHL career so far, we definitely saw a breakout in 23-24, putting up 55 points in 80 games. Last season, we saw identical production, but we did see a bump in ice time. He was trusted more by the coach, which is always a good sign for us. But unfortunately, he got less power play time. He didn't produce on the power play as much as he did the year prior. So that's sort of the only thing that's been holding him back, the lack of power play deployment and power play production. In terms of even strength, he has a pretty solidified role in the top six, mostly playing with Fiala and LaFerriere last year, so that's sort of what I expect the line to look like. But we need to talk about the power play for a second. I went over this in my power play video, but essentially Byfield didn't get the most power play one time last year. They had LaFerriere on there over him for a bit. Then they traded for Andrei Kuzmenko, who's a really good net front player. But we did see at the end of last season, they transitioned to a 5-forward power play with Byfield on it. It was Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Byfield, Fiala, and Kempe. They continued this in the playoffs, and that's a good sign because they did it when it mattered the most. So that is a positive for Byfield. If he is in the top six like he is expected to be and ends up on power play one for the entire season, we could see a big jump in production. With that being said, 5-forward power plays are not very common, and we don't know if they're going to stick with this. And if they decide to go back to a 4-forward, 1-defenseman unit, Byfield might be the guy that's left out. The reason I say this is because Kuzmenko is such a good net front player, and the power play looked much better with him on it, so he might be a lock. We all know that Kevin Fiala and Adrian Kempe are locks. And then with Kopitar, the reason why he's on the power play is because he is way better at faceoffs than Byfield, and they need somebody to win faceoffs on the man advantage. Overall, that is my only concern with Byfield. If he's not on power play one for the entire season, his ceiling is going to be capped. We'll see what happens, guys. I hope that he gets power play one deployment the entire year, but it's not guaranteed. Now, I want to quickly talk about 3 players that broke out last season. I don't know if they're going to take another step, but they definitely have the opportunity to do so. So let's just quickly go over these guys, starting off with Matthew Knies. The breakout case for Matthew Knies is to just take another step forward. There's no ice time argument for him. He got almost 19 minutes per game last year, so you're not really going to see an increase from there. But obviously, his situation is very good. Line one with Matthews, power play one, pretty solidified as that net front guy. So yeah, I mean, maybe you could argue, hey, he's going to be power play one the entire season because he didn't get on there until like December last season. So there is that argument there, but I'm expecting pretty similar production, probably like 60 to 65 points, but who knows, maybe he pots 70 points next year. That's certainly a possibility. So yeah, that's one honorable mention. And then another guy is Kent Johnson. Johnson was on pace for 68 points last season, so it's hard to imagine him eclipsing that significantly, and you could definitely argue for a step back, but I thought I'd just talk about him just in case he does break out and maybe, you know, puts up 75 to 80 points. I personally see it as less likely because a lot of things went right for the Blue Jackets last year, and I don't know if they can repeat the type of season they had. And also, Johnson was a little more efficient than I think he should be. I'm not sure if it's sustainable. So yeah, I do have some concerns, but he is an honorable mention here because there is a chance he does break out further. Lastly, we have another honorable mention here, and that guy is Dylan Holloway of the St. Louis Blues. Holloway had a massive breakout last year, improving his point total from 9 points to 63. He also scored 26 goals, and he did this while not necessarily averaging the most ice time. He averaged 16 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time per game, and he wasn't power play one for most of the season. He only put up 13 power play points last year. With that being said, if Holloway could get like 18 or 19 minutes per game on power play one, I could definitely see a scenario where he's scoring 30 plus goals and putting up like 75 points. I think it's a possibility, but it's all going to depend on deployment. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Holloway. If he ends up putting up like 75 points this season, I wouldn't be that surprised. Next up, let's talk about players that could potentially hit a point per game for this upcoming season, starting with Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, even though I do recognize the potential for Bedard to potentially be a point per game, I'm not as bullish on him as some other players I'm about to talk about for a number of reasons. The biggest thing is that the Blackhawks didn't upgrade their roster. It's pretty much the same roster, although they added Andre Burakovsky. They do have Frank Nazar for the entire season. They do have some young defensemen that could progress, but in general, this team still isn't very good. They don't really have a lot of players that can drive a line. So Bedard is left with little help. Also with Bedard as a player, he is incredible in transition, obviously, but he hasn't looked as dominant as I thought he would in the offensive zone. Maybe once we get some players around him, we're going to see him really start to dominate, but he hasn't necessarily impressed me. Overall, there's no denying Bedard has one of the best wristers, if not the best wrister in the NHL. He is going to be a 100-point player in the future, but for next season, I just don't see him having a big breakout. I think 80 points might be a ceiling, but I think somewhere around 70 to 75 points is the most realistic. The next player that could potentially be a point per game this season is Macklin Celebrini of the San Jose Sharks. Celebrini had an incredible rookie season, 63 points in 70 games. That put him on an 82-game pace of 73 points as an 18-year-old, and he had pretty much one of the best 18-year-old seasons that we've seen in the last like 35 years, other than Sidney Crosby. In terms of the advanced metrics that we're seeing with Celebrini, it is up there with some of the best players in the NHL. So there's a lot to like about Celebrini for this upcoming season, but we do have to recognize that he is still on the Sharks, and the Sharks aren't great. This is why I don't think Celebrini is going to put up 90 plus points next year. I'm not ruling it out, but just in the situation that he's in on a pretty stinky team in the Sharks, I don't see it happening. Right now, Celebrini is going way too high in some fantasy hockey contests, so I struggle to click him when he's going that high, but I can't rule out the potential, so I definitely wanted to talk about him. I think a point per game is certainly within the realm of possibilities. I think the realistic prediction is probably somewhere within the 75 to 85 point range. The next player that could be a point per game next season is Logan Cooley of the Utah Mammoth. Cooley was a beast last year. He had 65 points in 75 games, and that put him on pace for 71 points in a full year. Last season was also a year where Cooley was in power play 1 for the entire season. They had good stretches with Barrett Hayton on that top unit. So that is one argument you can make for a further breakout this year. What if he's power play 1 the entire season? One thing to mention as well is that he didn't start playing with Clayton Keller until the end of last season. So if we see a full year playing on the top line with Clayton Keller and Dylan Guenther, I could absolutely see him have a huge season. The next guy with point per game potential is none other than Matvei Michkov of the Philadelphia Flyers. Michkov had an incredible rookie season last year, 63 points in 80 games, and this was not in the most ideal situation. You have John Tortorella, Mr. Defense, Mr. Forecheck, Mr. I'm going to bench you if you make one mistake. And yeah, that's your head coach. That's a tough environment to be in. The Flyers didn't have a great season. Their power play wasn't very good. And Michkov still managed to produce despite those challenges. The good news for Michkov is that Tortorella's gone. Yes, we have Rick Tocchet, who isn't necessarily the best coach for fantasy hockey purposes, but anyone is an upgrade over John Tortorella. We also did see when Tortorella got fired last year, Michkov started to get like 20 minutes per game, and he went absolutely off. He had 16 points in his last 12 games, and he was shooting the puck like crazy. We also have to remember that Michkov went through a terrible stretch in the middle of last season. From like December to February, there was a 26-game stretch where he only had 7 points. So if you took that out of the equation and you just looked at the games where he was producing, he was playing at like a point per game pace. I know that might be cherry picking a bit, but I truly do think that with Tortorella gone, he's going to get more minutes. I think you could see him get 18, 19 minutes a game versus like 16 minutes under John Tortorella. That's going to bump up his production. Yeah, I'm excited to see what Michkov can do. I am tempering expectations though, because he is 20 years old. He is on not a good team in the Flyers. So I don't think he's going to put up like 90 points this year, but I could absolutely see him putting up 75 to 85 points. The last player on this point per game potential list is one of my favorite players in the NHL, and that player is Dylan Guenther of the Utah Mammoth. Guenther has had 2 really good seasons in 23-24 with the Coyotes, 35 points in 45 games. Following that up last season, 60 points in 70 games, including 27 goals, which was an 82-game pace of 31 goals and 70 points. And he did all of this despite only averaging around 17 minutes of ice time per game. I'm expecting this ice time to go up, hopefully to 18 or 19 minutes. The reason why I'm so high in Guenther is because he has one of the best shots in the NHL. It is lightning fast. Like, you'll see, he'll shoot the puck and goalies don't even know that it went in. Not only does he have that incredible shot, but he's also extremely speedy, extremely skilled. He's improving his playmaking abilities. He might be playing on the first line with Clayton Keller and Logan Cooley, which is going to be absolutely deadly. And he has a secure role on the left circle on this power play. With all that being said, I think Gunther's going to score 40 goals next year or close to it. I think 80 points is realistic. Yeah, I'm super excited to see him progress this season. And in fantasy hockey, he's going to be an absolute beast. The last thing I want to talk about here is 3 players that could potentially be an over point per game for this upcoming season, starting with Kirill Marchenko of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Marchenko is 25 years old, 6'3", had a breakout season last year, 74 points in 79 games, including 31 goals. And even though a lot of things went right for the Blue Jackets last year, and I'm not sure if they're able to repeat the success that they had, I think he has another gear that he can shift into, and I do think he can take another step. I say this for a number of reasons. 1, he's still very young. 2, he's improved every single season in the NHL. His playmaking skills have improved quite a bit. He was a plus 29 last year, and I think a big thing we can look at here is even strength production. He was tied for 8th in even strength goals last year, ahead of a ton of other players, and let's list some off. He had more even strength goals than Jack Eichel, Nathan McKinnon, Sidney Crosby, Sam Reinhart, Jake Gensel, Braden Point. The list goes on, guys. He was elite even strength, and if we see his power play goals go back to the level that they were the 2 previous seasons, then I could see him putting up 40 plus goals. Another player that could be over a point per game is Wyatt Johnston. He had 71 points last year in 82 games, and I think in terms of the breakout case, there's a number of things we can touch on. 1 is that last year it was a really slow start. He was snake bitten. The Dallas Stars power play was terrible, and they actually had him net front instead of in the bumper at the start. I didn't understand what Pete DeBoer was doing, but I expect this power play to improve. I mean, they have insanely good players on this power play, so this could be a top 5 power play in the NHL, and we could see his power play production go up. Another really important thing to mention here is that Johnson's going to have better line mates. Last season, the line that he played the most minutes on was with Jamie Benn and Evgeny Dadonov, and that line wasn't very good. I think there's a good chance he plays on a line with Matt Duchene and Tyler Seguin, who are still very good players. I'm expecting regression from those guys, but it's going to be an upgrade there. And who knows? They might switch up the lines. It could be Mikko Rantanen on his line sometimes. It could be Jason Robertson. You're going to see better even strength line mates. You're going to see him on a really good power play. And the Stars are not as deep. So that top 6 is going to be heavily relied on. I will say that Johnson's playoff performance was not good this season, but I believe in him as a player. I don't know if 90 points is reachable, but I think 80 to 85 points is a possibility. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I'm looking forward to see what he could do this year. Another guy who could potentially be an over point per game player is Cole Caulfield of the Montreal Canadiens. Caulfield had 70 points last year, but he didn't necessarily have the most points on the power play. He only had 17 power play points. If he had similar power play production in Nick Suzuki last year, he would have been an over point per game player. So there is that breakout case. The only issue I have is the power play. It's a little bit tricky right now. They moved him from his natural position on the left circle. Patrick Laine was there last year. I don't know what's going to happen with this power play. It's hard to take Laine off, who was the best power play goal scorer in the NHL last season, but there is a chance they move Caulfield to the left circle and put Demidov on the right circle, which could lead to more power play points because he's going to be utilized more. He's going to be one of the top options on this power play, other than, you know, always looking to Laine. So there is that case there. He's right within that age range, around 24 years old, where you start to see guys enter their peak production. So yeah, I think in general, Caulfield's a guy that can put up 40 goals potentially. I think he can put up 80 to 90 points. 90 points is probably a little bit unrealistic, but it's certainly a ceiling that he's able to obtain. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do, and this Canadiens team is going to be good for a number of years. The last player here is Matt Boldy of the Minnesota Wild. I think he's going to have a great season. Last season, he had 73 points in 82 games. And this was a year that there was a lot of struggles with the Wild. A lot of injuries with their defense. Kaprizov missed like half of the season. They were really unlucky on the power play as well. If you look at all those guys' shooting percentages on the power play, super low. Zuccarello missed time, Eriksson Ek missed time. So if we do see a more healthy Minnesota Wild team, that's going to benefit Boldy. Boldy's 24 years old. He's also a force in fantasy hockey in terms of his shot volume, 271 shots last year. He also had 10 game-winning goals, so this guy's clutch. But I do think he has a lot of potential to potentially score 35 plus goals and 85 plus points. The only issue I have with Boldy is that I'm not sure he's going to play with Kaprizov. And listen, he could produce regardless of who his line mates are, but if they did run a top line of Eriksson, Kaprizov, and Boldy, the sky's the limit. The reason they don't do it is because they don't want to be too top heavy, but you do have some young players that could show out. A guy like Danila Yurov, you have Marco Rossi there, so maybe they'll feel comfortable this season making a Boldy, Kaprizov, Eriksson top line. But yes, if he's not on a line with Kaprizov, that limits his ceiling. Overall, very excited about Boldy. He is primed for a breakout, and I think he's going to have some monster weeks in fantasy hockey this year. Lastly, I just want to fire off some honorable mentions. JJ Peterka, I've talked about him in my most recent 2 videos. I just have an issue with him in terms of worse even strength line mates than he had on Buffalo, and probably not power play 1. So those are my concerns. But listen, if he does end up on a line with like Keller and he ends up on power play 1, yes, he could really break out further. You also have a few other guys here. You have Rucker McCrory. I could see another season of him playing in the AHL, although he did play better at the end of the season. He had 20 points in his last 24 games in the AHL. I don't know, guys. We'll see. I think this year is not the year he breaks out. A few other guys here. Gabriel Perreault, I don't think he's going to be in the top 6. Not sure if he is going to be with the Rangers full-time either. Fraser Minton, a similar situation, probably on the 3rd line if he's on the team. Connor Geekie on Tampa, he's a 3rd line guy. You know, there would have to be an injury. Liam Ogren has potential for sure. Almost a point per game in the AHL. Really good in the Swedish Hockey League, but probably on the 3rd line on Minnesota. Atu Ratti on the Canucks. Likely line 3 if he makes the team. I definitely like him as a player, but not sure this year's a breakout. Fedor Svechkov. Probably should have mentioned him because he has a good shot of being the line 2 center on Nashville, but I don't know. I don't know if he has the most insane offensive ceiling. Ryan Leonard didn't play the best with the Caps last year. He has a lot of potential, don't get me wrong. He's going to be a beast in fantasy for years to come, but I don't know if next year is going to be the year he breaks out. He might be playing in the AHL. Another guy here, Bradley Nadeau. I just think the Canes are too crowded. He has so much potential though, guys. Trust me. He was a beast in the AHL last year at the age of 19 years old. He was 5th in goals. So yeah, I like him a lot as a player, but just don't see it for this season. And then we also have Mate Blumel, a guy who led the AHL in points, recruited by Pasternak. 4th in goals per game, 7th in points per game. You know, he's 25 years old, and there's a reason he really hasn't played in the NHL. So we'll see what happens there, but maybe he ends up in the top 6 and on power play 1 on Boston. That would be pretty cool to see. Lastly is Michael Misa. We don't really know what's going on. It seems like it's less likely he's going to be playing in college, so maybe he does make the team. I probably should have talked about him, but I think he's going to get the Will Smith treatment, you know, line 3, power play 2. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Obviously, he's an unreal offensive player, but this year is not going to be a big breakout, in my opinion. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. I promise that not all these videos are going to be so long. I had to talk about so many players. So yeah, this was a lot of work. Hit a like button if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel.